I sit alone at a table near the back of the Oakmont Country Club, acutely aware of how my simple navy dress stands out among the designer labels and custom tailoring around me. Champagne flows freely as waiters in crisp white jackets weave through the crowd, their trays balanced effortlessly above the celebrating guests. This is David's big day, his graduation from business school with honors. My parents have spared no expense. Mom catches my eye across the room, her smile faltering for just a moment before she turns back to her friends. I adjust the collar of my dress, feeling the fabric catch on my calloused fingers, a stark contrast to the manicured hands raising crystal flutes throughout the room. The ice in my water glass clinks as I take a sip. I don't dare touch the champagne. Last time I had a glass at a family function, Dad commented that I couldn't even hold my liquor properly. So water it is. Dad steps to the center of the room, tapping his knife against his glass. The sharp ping cuts through conversation, and silence falls like a heavy curtain. This is the moment everyone's been waiting for. Richard Bennett's speech for his son, the golden child, the heir apparent to everything my father values. Ladies and gentlemen, esteemed colleagues, and dear friends, Dad begins, his voice carrying that practiced resonance he uses in boardrooms to celebrate excellence. My stomach tightens. I've heard variations of this speech my entire life. Today we celebrate my son, David Richard Bennett, to our only true pride and joy. The words slam into me like a physical blow. I glance around to see if anyone notices, but all eyes are fixed on my father, nodding and smiling. This isn't new, I tell myself. This shouldn't hurt anymore. Dad continues, warming to his theme. You know, sometimes I think we should have stopped at one child. He delivers this with a wink, and laughter erupts around me. Actual roars of laughter. Mrs. Harrington, at the next table, wipes tears from her eyes. She's laughing so hard. I sit frozen, my smile a mask glued to my face. 23 years of practice makes it almost believable. I reach for my purse under the table, fingers brushing against the envelope inside my own achievement letter, tucked away where no one will notice or care. And now, Dad announces, gesturing grandly toward the large doors leading to the terrace. A small token of our pride in you, son. The doors swing open, and there it sits, a brand new German sports car, gleaming silver under the afternoon sun, an absurdly large red bow perched on its roof. Gasps and applause fill the room as David's face lights up with boyish glee. $70,000 of boyish glee. I'm suddenly 8 years old again, watching my parents cheer as David kicks his first soccer goal, while my perfect spelling test sits unacknowledged in my backpack. I'm 12, sitting alone with a store-bought cake on my birthday because everyone is at David's regional basketball tournament. I'm 16, and my birthday has been forgotten in the chaos of planning David's elaborate, carnival-themed celebration the following week. I'm 18, sitting in our kitchen as Dad explains that there simply isn't money for my college fund not after investing so much in David's future. He's going to need it more than you, sweetheart. You're smart, you'll figure something out. I quietly excuse myself from the table as David begins his speech, thanking our parents for their unwavering support. No one notices me slip toward the exit except for Aunt Martha. Her weathered hand catches mine as I pass. I see you, dear, she whispers, her eyes holding mine with unexpected fierceness. I always have. I squeeze her hand in silent gratitude before continuing toward the door. Outside, the evening air cools my flushed face. I walk alone across the parking lot, my sensible shoes crunching on the gravel. The sounds of celebration drift through the open window, slaughter, clinking glasses. My mother's delighted squeal as David must be doing something charming. I stop in my Cara 10-year-old sedan I bought with my own money and catch my reflection in the window. My eyes are dry, my posture straight. But something else is there too. Something I haven't allowed myself to feel before. A quiet determination forming behind the pain. When I arrive home, the house is empty and silent. I head upstairs, but stop when I hear voices through the open window, Mom and Dad in the garden below. We should convert Jocelyn's room into a home office for David, Dad says. He'll need somewhere professional to work when he brings clients home. Perfect timing since she's rarely here anyway, Mom agrees, and it has the better view. I stand motionless in the hallway, the familiar weight of invisibility pressing down on me. But tonight, it doesn't bend my shoulders as it usually does. Tonight, it hardens something in my core. I move to my room and pull out my suitcase from under the bed. My hands no longer tremble as I begin to pack my most essential belongings. The acceptance letter from my Percy full scholarship to a university 3 states away goes last into my bag. A copy of the letter I place deliberately on the kitchen counter, where they'll find it after the celebration ends. After I'm gone, what would you do if your own family treated you as nothing more than an afterthought? Would you stay and endure, or find the courage to walk away? My decision will change everything, but not in the way anyone expected. The trunk of my car is half filled when headlights sweep across the driveway. Mom's silver Mercedes pulls in, followed by Dad's BMW. The graduation celebration must have finally wound down. I straighten my spine as car doors slam in unison. What drama is this now? Mom's voice cuts through the evening air as she approaches, her heels clicking on the concrete. She doesn't look at my packed belongings, just flicks her gaze over me with practiced dismissal. Dad doesn't even pretend interest. For God's sake, Jocelyn, can you go one day without making everything about you? This is David's special day. I continue loading a box of books into my trunk. I'm not making anything about me. I'm simply leaving. Leaving? Mom echoes as if I've spoken in a foreign language. David's car roars into the driveway, the new sports car purring like a satisfied cat. He steps out with exaggerated concern etched on his face. What's wrong, little sis? Jealous again? His smile doesn't reach his eyes. Something inside me shifts. Years of silence crack like ice in spring. No, David. Not jealous, just done. Done with what? Dad demands, impatience radiating from him in waves. Everything. My voice remains steady as I close the trunk. The forgotten birthdays, the ignored achievements, the broken promises. Mom waves her hand dismissively. You've always been so sensitive. David simply needed more attention. He had sports, social obligations. I had a 4.0 GPA for 7 consecutive years. I interrupt, no longer willing to be talked over. I was valedictorian. I won 3 state academic competitions. I volunteered 400 hours at the Children's Hospital. Each achievement falls between us like stones into still water. None of you attended a single award ceremony. Dad's jaw tightens. There's nothing about you to be proud of. Academic achievements are easy. David worked for his success. The words should hurt, but they merely confirm what I've always known. I pull the university letter from my jacket pocket. I received a full-ride scholarship worth $80,000. I earned it entirely on my own. I place the letter on the hood of my car. 3 pairs of eyes follow my movement. Silence stretching between us for the first time. Dad recovers first, his chest puffing slightly. Well, you get your brains from me. No. The word emerges quiet but firm. I succeeded despite you, not because of you. My phone buzzes with a text. Aunt Martha's name appears on the screen. Your room at my place is ready. Drive safe, dear one. Who's that? Mom asks, suddenly interested. Aunt Martha. I slip the phone back into my pocket. She's been more family to me than anyone in this house. Another text arrives from Kelly, who stayed up with me for 3 nights straight, helping me complete scholarship applications. We're all rooting for you. Remember what we practiced. You have people waiting for you? Mom's voice rises an octave. Yes, people who actually see me. I straighten my shoulders. Mrs. Chen from the library who drove me to college interviews when you were too busy with David's games. Mr. Peterson, my high school counselor, who was the only person to attend my academic awards ceremony. Kelly and Mark, who helped me apply for scholarships while you were planning David's graduation party. Dad's face reddens. Those people aren't family. They're my chosen family. I reply, the words feeling right. The difference is, they value me without obligation. They celebrate my achievements without resentment. They show up. Mr. Peterson's words from senior year echo in my memory. You're going places, Jocelyn, with or without them. At the time, I desperately hoped it would be with them. Now I understand the freedom in without. This is ridiculous, David cuts in. You've always had a roof over your head, food on the table. That's called basic parenting, David. The minimum legal requirement. Dad steps toward me, his business negotiation face sliding into place. Now, Jocelyn, let's be reasonable. We're family. Family sees each other. My counselor once told me, you're going places with or without them. I finally understand he meant without you. If you'd tried harder like me, they would have cared, David interjects, his tone dripping with condescension. You just didn't make the effort. The familiar pain of his words doesn't sting as it once did. I stopped trying to earn love that should have been freely given. Mom's perfectly manicured hand reaches for my arm. What will people think if you just leave? Consider our reputation. I gently remove her fingers. I release you from any obligation to me. The words feel like setting down a heavy weight I've carried too long. You no longer need to pretend I exist at family functions. You can convert my room to David's home office without guilt. The shock on her face confirms she heard our earlier conversation through the garden window. Be reasonable, David says, stepping between me and my car door. You're overreacting. Come back inside, and we'll talk about this tomorrow. I reach into my wallet and remove the family photo I've carried since high school. I place it in David's hand, the one connection I voluntarily sever. There's nothing to discuss. You can't leave. Dad's voice rises, control slipping. Where will you go? How will you manage? You need us. No, I say simply, I don't. I slide into the driver's seat and start the engine. Through the windshield, I watch my family standing in the driveway, Mom clutching her pearls. Dad's face flushed with anger. David looking confused that his charm failed to work. They're still standing there, frozen like statues in the growing darkness, as I drive away. The rearview mirror shows their diminishing figures, and for the first time in 23 years, I don't look back with longing. My hands steady on the steering wheel, I drive toward Aunt Martha's house on the other side of town. Toward people who see me, toward a future that for once belongs entirely to me. Have you ever had to walk away from toxic family relationships to save yourself? What gave you the strength to finally leave? Share your story in the comments below. The single-paned window of my apartment whistles with each gust of November wind. My breath fogs the glass as I press my forehead against it, watching students hurry across campus, bundled in scarves and coats. 3 months since I walked away from everything familiar. 3 months of building something from nothing. My efficiency apartment sits 5 blocks from campus, the cheapest I could find that didn't have visible mold. The landlord called it cozy. That's a generous word for 380 square feet, with a kitchenette where the refrigerator door can't fully open because it hits the stove. I turn from the window and survey my kingdom. A mattress on the floor, a lamp without a shade. And my pride and joy, a solid oak desk I rescued from the thrift store on Milton Street. The woman there helped me load it into a borrowed truck, patting my hand when I explained it was for studying. You're going places, honey, she'd said. The desk dominates the small room, but I don't care. I've arranged my textbooks in neat stacks, my laptop precisely centered. This is mission control. This is where I'll build my future. Word by careful word. My phone alarm chirps. 4:30 a.m. Time for my first job. 1 caramel macchiato, extra shot, light foam. I call out, sliding the cup across the counter. The morning rush at Beans and Books hits like a tidal wave, students desperate for caffeine before 8 a.m. classes, professors grabbing fuel for office hours, commuters stopping en route to corporate jobs downtown. I've learned to read people by their orders. The triple shot guys who never look up from their phones. The lavender latte ladies who always have a kind word. My fingers cramp from 8 hours of steaming milk and pulling espresso shots. But every tip that lands in the jar is one more textbook I can afford. One more utility bill covered. One more piece of evidence that I don't need my parents' money. My afternoon shift at the university library starts in 30 minutes. Just enough time to change my coffee-splattered shirt in the employee bathroom and grab a protein bar from my backpack. The library's quiet hum wraps around me like a blanket as I shelve returns. Between reshelving books and helping lost freshmen navigate the card catalog system, I sneak moments to study my own materials, highlighting passages one-handed while checking student IDs with the other. Saturday and Sunday mornings, I tutor struggling students in psychology 101 and statistics, 3 jobs, 7 days a week. This is what independence costs. When my first entirely self-earned paycheck arrived, I sat cross-legged on my mattress and cried, tracing my name on the envelope. Not a handout, not an allowance with strings attached. Mine. Thanksgiving arrives like a thief, stealing the students from campus and leaving empty corridors and silent dining halls. I haven't heard a word from my parents. Not that I expected to. I heat a microwave turkey dinner on the plastic plate that came with it. The cranberry sauce bleeds into the stuffing, creating an unappetizing pink smear. Steam fogs my one window as rain patters against the glass. I eat standing up, watching droplets race down the window pane, betting on which one will reach the bottom first. When I finish, I wash the plastic fork carefully. It's one of 3 I own. The silence of the apartment presses in. I turn on my laptop, opening a document to work on my research paper. Words blur before my eyes. For one weak moment, I imagine the scene at home, the formal dining room table extended to its full length, Mom's good china gleaming under the chandelier light, Dad carving the turkey with surgical precision, while David tells some amusing anecdote from work. They've probably placed my chair in storage. I close the laptop and curl under my blanket, fully clothed, counting breaths until sleep comes. The Christmas card arrives the week before finals, addressed to occupant, with my apartment number scrawled as an afterthought. Inside, a family photo. Mom, Dad, and David standing before the fireplace, color coordinated in red and green. No empty space where I should be. No acknowledgement of absence. I pin it to my corkboard as a reminder. That night, walking across the campus quad, I pass a father hugging his daughter goodbye after visiting for the weekend. Her face glows with the uncomplicated happiness of someone who has never questioned her place in her family's heart. I make it back to my apartment before the sobs come, great heaving waves that bend me double. I press my fist against my mouth to hold them in. These walls are thin, and my neighbors don't need to hear my breakdown. Later that night, my thumb hovers over my parents' number in my phone. One call, one moment of weakness. I imagine Mom's voice distracted, always slightly impatient. Dad's perfunctory greeting, waiting for me to explain why I'm bothering him. I delete their number and toss the phone onto my mattress. Miss Bennett, do you have a moment after class? Professor Whitaker peers at me over her reading glasses. She's formidable steel gray hair, pulled into a tight bun, posture like she's balancing a book on her head. Her developmental psychology course is the most challenging of my freshman year, and her approval is as rare as winter sunshine. Your research proposal shows unusual insight, she says once the classroom empties. Your analysis of attachment theory as it relates to adult-sibling relationships is graduate-level work. I stand straighter, warmth spreading through my chest. I'd like you to consider expanding it for the department symposium in spring. She continues. With my guidance, of course. I have a research assistant position opening next semester. Paid. A 4th job. A mentor. Recognition for my work, not my family name. I would be honored, I manage to say. My hands tremble as I stand at the podium. The symposium audience faculty, graduate students, visiting scholars watches expectantly. 3 rows back, Professor Whitaker gives me an encouraging nod. The impact of early attachment disruption on adult achievement patterns. I begin, my voice steadier than I feel. 20 minutes later, the applause washes over me like a cleansing rain. Questions follow, thoughtful and challenging. I answer each one, my confidence growing with every exchange. This is my element. These are my people, those who value ideas, evidence, effort. Walking back to my apartment that evening, I realize something profound has shifted. For the first time since leaving home, I feel fully present in my own life, not defined by what or who is missing. Aunt Martha's care packages arrive every Wednesday. Homemade cookies wrapped in wax paper. Tea bags from her favorite specialty shop. Small practical gifts: a thermal mug, warm socks, a gift card for the campus bookstore. Each one contains a handwritten letter that never asks when I'll reconcile with my parents, but tells me she's proud of me. My study group meets Tuesdays and Thursdays in the library. Zoe, whose laugh carries across quiet study spaces. Miguel, who brings homemade empanadas his abuela sends. Taisha, whose incisive questions cut through academic jargon like a knife. We started as classmates. We've become something more. You're coming for Easter, and I won't hear otherwise. Mrs. Abernathy announces one Sunday, setting a second helping of pot roast on my plate. My elderly neighbor invited me for dinner after helping her carry groceries up 3 flights of stairs. Now it's our weekly tradition. Her apartment smells of potpourri and baking bread. Her walls lined with photos of grandchildren who rarely visit. You remind me of myself at your age, she tells me often. Backbone of steel. The letter arrives on a bright spring day. Dear Miss Bennett, it reads, we are pleased to inform you that you have been selected as this year's recipient of the Anderson Fellowship for Exceptional Audit Research. Professor Whitaker finds me in the lab, clutching the letter, unable to speak. I nominated you, she says simply. Your work deserves recognition. You're going to change lives with Jocelyn. The university paper runs a small article. Rising academic star earns prestigious fellowship. There's a photo of me accepting the certificate, Professor Whitaker beaming beside me. I mail a copy to Aunt Martha. Speech! Speech! Miguel calls out, raising his plastic cup of sparkling cider. My study group has transformed my sparse apartment with streamers and a hand-painted banner. Congrats, magna cum laude. Taisha has baked a chocolate cake, decorated with what appears to be chemical formulas in icing. Zoe presents me with a gift wrapped in Sunday Comics, a leather-bound journal, embossed with my initials. For your brilliant thoughts, she explains. Mrs. Abernathy dabs her eyes with a handkerchief. I told you, backbone of steel. I look around at these people who became my chosen family, at the apartment that became home, at the life I built from nothing but determination and grace. What would you sacrifice to build a life of dignity and purpose? I gave up my family ties but gained something far more valuable. Was it worth it? Standing here, surrounded by genuine celebration, the answer seems obvious. The next chapter waits, with unexpected twists that will test everything I've built. But tonight, I savor this moment of triumph, earned entirely on my own terms. I straighten the row of framed certificates on my office wall, adjusting the doctoral diploma until it sits perfectly level. 5 years of building something from nothing: degrees, awards, published papers, all displayed in simple black frames that stand in stark contrast to the rich mahogany of my office walls. Outside my window, autumn paints the university quad in brilliant reds and golds. Students meander between classes, their laughter drifting upward. I'm scheduled to meet with a promising graduate student in 15 minutes to discuss her research proposal. Dr. Bennett? My assistant Sarah peeks her head in. Your 3 o'clock canceled. Said she'd email to reschedule. Thanks. I smile, grateful for the unexpected break. I'll use the time to finish reviewing those grant applications. Sarah hesitates. Also, your mother called. Again. 3rd time this week. My hand freezes over the stack of papers. 3 years of silence, and suddenly, my phone won't stop ringing. Did she leave another message? Sarah nods, her expression carefully neutral. She said it's urgent. Your father apparently called too, but that was while I was at lunch. I thank her and wait until the door clicks shut before reaching for my phone. 4 missed calls, 2 voicemails. With reluctant fingers, I tap to play the first message. Jocelyn. It's Mom. Her voice sounds thinner than I remember. Please call us back. It's important. Delete. The second. Jocelyn. My father's voice, stripped of its usual commanding tone. Something about it makes my stomach tighten. We need to talk to you. It's a pause. Just call us. Please. Please? From Richard Bennett? And not a single mention of David. I set the phone down and turned toward the window, watching a leaf spiral downward until it lands on the manicured lawn below. The silence about David speaks volumes. When I check my email later that afternoon, there it is, the third attempt this week, with a subject line in all caps. Family emergency, please respond. I close my laptop without opening it and head to my standing appointment with Dr. Winters, the therapist who has guided me through rebuilding my life. They're persistent, I tell her after explaining the barrage of contact attempts. But they haven't said what it's about, just that it's urgent. Dr. Winters considers this, her silver hair catching the light. What are you thinking about doing? Part of me wants to maintain the silence. They didn't care when I needed them. I inhale slowly. But I keep thinking about what you said about curiosity without obligation. Responding doesn't mean you owe them anything, she reminds me. You can set boundaries. That evening, I draft a measured email. I understand you've been trying to reach me. Before we speak, I need to know what this is regarding. I am willing to schedule a short video call once you provide specific details. This is not a commitment to anything beyond that conversation. I wait 3 hours before hitting send. Enough time to be certain. Their response arrives by morning. David is in trouble. We need your help. Please call us tomorrow at 7 p.m. The scheduled time arrives with military precision. I sit at my home office desk, spine straight, professional blouse buttoned to the collar. Their faces appear on screen, my mother's hair, now completely gray, my father's jowls more pronounced. They look smaller somehow. Jocelyn, you look. My mother searches for words. Professional. Thank you for agreeing to speak with us, my father says, the words clearly familiar in his mouth. I steer past their attempts at small talk. You mentioned David is in trouble. What's happening? They exchange glances. My mother's hands twist in her lap. David has been struggling, she begins carefully. He's developed some dependencies. Drugs. My father clarifies bluntly. Started with prescription painkillers after a skiing accident. Progressed to harder stuff. He's lost his job. His fiancée left him last month. I'm sorry to hear that, I say, meaning it despite everything. Is he in treatment? That's part of why we're calling. My mother leans forward. The neighbors are starting to talk. The Hendersons saw him. Her voice drops to a whisper. Being escorted from the country club, it was humiliating. Of course. Not concerned for David's health, but for their reputation. We need you to come home, my father says, not quite meeting my eyes. You are always the responsible one. You can help fix this. Fix this. I repeat, testing the weight of those words. He's drained his trust fund. My father continues. We've had to cover his debts. We're not equipped to handle this sort of situation. The irony doesn't escape me. After years of being the family afterthought, suddenly I'm essential. The child they dismissed is now their only hope. You always knew what to do in a crisis, my mother adds, her eyes pleading. You always cleaned up the messes. The responsible one, I echo, the old labels settling on my shoulders like a familiar weight I'd long since discarded. Interesting that you remember that part now. My father shifts uncomfortably. Jocelyn, we understand you've been away. But family is family. A laugh nearly escapes me. Family. As if the word alone should erase everything. David needs structure. My mother continues. Discipline. That's always been your strength. I watch them carefully. These people who share my DNA but barely know me. The parents who once couldn't be bothered to attend my honors ceremony now look at me like I'm their salvation. The irony burns in my chest, mingles with an old, familiar ache I thought I'd outgrown. Part of Meth, a wounded child who still lives somewhere deep inside, wants to savor this moment of vindication. See, I was worth something after all. Another part wants to end the call immediately. Protect the life I've built with such painful care. But there's a third voice too. The psychologist who understands family systems, and the therapist who's worked through her own trauma. That voice whispers about cycles of pain, about David as both perpetrator and victim of our parents' warped priorities. Let me be clear. I say, my professional tone firmly in place while turmoil rages beneath. I have a career, responsibilities, and a life that I've built entirely without your support. I'm not simply going to abandon all that, because you've suddenly decided I'm useful. My mother flinches. My father's jaw tightens. That said, I continue, surprising even myself. I'll consider what kind of help I might be able to offer. From a distance, with clear boundaries, the relief on their faces is almost pathetic. They don't understand yet that the daughter they're reaching for no longer exists. The woman I've become isn't desperate for their approval. She doesn't clean up messes to earn love that should have been freely given. I'll need to think about this further. I say finally, my voice steady despite the storm inside. I'll contact you next week with my decision. As I end the call, their anxious faces disappear from my screen. I sit motionless, listening to my own breathing in the quiet room. What they're really asking hangs in the air, unspoken but unmistakable. Come save the son we always chose over you. The tables have turned so completely it's almost dizzying. The golden child has fallen. The afterthought has become essential. And I'm left to decide whether I'm strong enough to help without losing myself in the process. I sit in my office chair, spine straight, fingers hovering over the keyboard. The familiar weight of academic books on the shelves behind me grounds me as I prepare for this call. On my computer screen, the video conference window shows my reflection professional blouse. Subtle makeup, hair neatly styled. Nothing like the awkward, invisible girl who fled home 5 years ago. You don't owe them anything, Dr. Winters, my therapist had reminded me yesterday. Remember your boundaries. I take a deep breath and click connect. The screen flickers, and there he is. David's face appears, hollow-cheeked and sallow. His once confident jawline now slack, obscured by patchy stubble. Dark circles underline bloodshot eyes. This stranger wearing my brother's face stares back at me, his hand trembling slightly as he adjusts the camera. Jocelyn, he says, his voice scratchy. You look good. Before I can respond, movement behind him draws my attention. Mother appears, her carefully maintained appearance now showing cracked hair a shade too brassy, makeup slightly overdone, as if compensating for something. Jocelyn, thank goodness, she gushes, leaning into frame. We've been beside ourselves with worry about your brother. Father crowds in next, his imposing frame diminished somehow, but his eyes still calculating. The Hendersons asked about you at church, he says instead of hello. I told them you were doing important research abroad. Couldn't exactly tell them the truth, could we? I feel my jaw tighten. I agreed to speak with David, not to a family intervention. Now, sweetheart, Mother begins in that tone that always preceded manipulation. We're all just trying to help David through this rough patch. The neighbors are starting to talk. The neighbors, I repeat, my voice flat. That's your concern right now? Well, if you'd been here, Father starts, his voice rising. Maybe your brother wouldn't have. I need to talk to Jocelyn alone. David's voice cuts through, surprising us all with its sudden clarity. My parents exchange glances loaded with unspoken meaning. That's not necessary, Mother says. We're family, we have no secrets. David looks up, something hardening in his face, a flash of the golden boy assertiveness. Please, just give me 10 minutes. After more protests and significant looks, they reluctantly leave. The quiet that follows feels like the pause between lightning and thunder. I wait, letting the silence do its work. 5 years of academic research has taught me the power of patient observation. They're gone, David confirms, glancing over his shoulder. He turns back, eyes suddenly welling with tears. God, Jocelyn, I never wanted any of. I wasn't prepared for this. Anger, excuses, even arrogance, those I had strategies for. But this naked vulnerability catches me off guard. Any of what exactly? I ask carefully. This life they planned for me. His voice breaks. The prestigious career, the country club membership, the perfect wife from the right family. He runs shaking hands through his unwashed hair. I just wanted to make music, remember? Before Dad convinced me it was a hobby, not a future. I do remember. David at 16, composing songs in his room late at night. Before the business school applications Father filled out for him. So you turned to drugs instead? The words come out sharper than intended. Hills first, he admits, not meeting my eyes. After a panic attack during final exams. Then more to handle the pressure at the firm. Then, he gestures vaguely at himself. This. He looks up suddenly, eyes clear despite their redness. They made you the scapegoat and me the golden child. But we both lost, Jocelyn. Neither of us ever had a chance to be ourselves. The words hit me with physical force. All these years, I'd pictured David reveling in his favored status while I suffered in silence. I never considered he might be suffering too, just in a different cage. You never stood up for me, I say, my voice steady despite the storm inside. All those years, David. All those birthdays and achievements. You watched them erase me. I know. He doesn't try to defend himself. I was too weak. Too afraid of losing their approval. By the time I realized what was happening, the pattern was set. He wipes his eyes with his sleeve. I'm sorry, Jocelyn, not that it matters now. But it does matter. Something shifts inside men at forgiveness exactly. The recognition. I see him clearly for perhaps the first time, not as the golden child or the fallen favorite, but as another casualty of our parents' toxic love. We were both victims in different ways, I say softly. Two sides of the same dysfunctional coin. David nods, relief washing over his features. They're talking about sending me to some spa in Arizona, where celebrities go to rest. They're more worried about keeping this quiet than getting me actual help. That's not happening, I say firmly. If I'm involved, you'll get real treatment. Professional rehabilitation with addiction specialists and therapy. No family cover-ups. They won't like that. I'm not doing this for them. My voice is steady now, certain. And I won't be moving back home or handling this quietly. Those are my terms. What about us? He asks. Vulnerability naked on his face. You and me? I consider this carefully. The hurt child in me wants to punish him for his complicity. The psychologist in me recognizes the complexity of family dynamics. The woman I've become knows that healing doesn't require forgetting. I'll help you find yourself, David, I finally say. Not become their version of you. That's the only relationship I'm interested in building. For the first time in our adult lives, I see something like genuine hope in my brother's eyes. Not the manufactured confidence of the golden child, but something more fragile and real. I'd like that, he whispers as footsteps approach behind him. Our time is up. As my parents re-enter the frame, already talking over each other with plans and excuses, I watch David's face. Something has shifted between USA first tentative bridge across years of manufactured division. I don't know if healing is possible after such deep betrayal. But as I set out my terms to my stunned parents, I realize that compassion doesn't require sacrificing myself again. This time, if I walk back into their lives, it will be standing tall, with boundaries firm and eyes wide open. I stand ramrod straight in the morning sunlight as David signs the intake papers at Riverside Recovery Center. The facility's red brick exterior and professionally landscaped grounds look nothing like the sterile institutions I'd feared. My professional connections ensured he'd receive proper treatment, not the quick fix our parents wanted. We could handle this at home, Dad mutters beside me, his voice pitched low enough that the intake coordinator can't hear. The Bennett name's still something in this town. I turn to face him directly, no longer the shadow in the corner of family photographs. This isn't about the Bennett name, it's about David's life. Mom wrings her designer scarf between manicured fingers. What will people think? That's exactly the thinking that got us here, I reply, my voice steady. 5 years of building my own life has washed away the desperate need for their approval. 3 weeks later, I sit across from our family therapist, Dr. Winters, in a session I scheduled around my teaching commitments. Jocelyn never had problems growing up. Mom insists, rewriting history with breathtaking confidence. David was the one who needed extra attention. That's not accurate, I counter, no longer swallowing uncomfortable truths. I learned to hide my needs because they were consistently ignored. After the third session, Mom catches me in the parking lot. Her eyes, so like mine, show unfamiliar uncertainty. I didn't see it, she says, her voice catching. I didn't see you. It's not a complete apology, but it's the first genuine acknowledgement I've ever received from her. Dad continues his struggle. During family sessions, he sits with arms crossed, occasionally offering grudging participation. Old patterns die hard, especially for those who benefited from them. David, however, transforms. Each week reveals more of the person beneath the golden child facade. During our private visits, he speaks of finding his own path after discharge. I never wanted the corporate career, he confesses one afternoon. That was all Dad. The day David completes the program, there's a small gathering in the center's community room, no champagne, no speeches about family legacies. Just coffee, store-bought cookies, and genuine smiles. He approaches me with a wrapped package. Inside is a framed copy of my first published paper on family trauma and resilience. I read it, he says, unexpected pride in his voice. I understand now. Our parents stand awkwardly nearby, attempting conversation without their usual condescension. 5 years later, David and I sit on a park bench near the university, where I now chair the psychology department. The scholarship fund I established for students from challenging family backgrounds has just accepted its 20th recipient. David, now a certified addiction counselor, checks his watch. My next group starts in an hour, he says, the contentment in his voice a world away from the hollow man who entered rehab. My memoir about family dynamics sits on bestseller lists and has become required reading in psychology courses nationwide. Not for fame, but for the ripple effect of truth-telling. A young woman approaches, clutching my book to her chest. Professor Bennett, your memoir helped me find courage to set boundaries with my own family. I just wanted to thank you. David smiles proudly as she walks away. Between us lies the comfortable silence of two people who've rewritten their story together. Sometimes the most loving thing we can do is walk away, I say, watching students cross the quad. And sometimes the bravest thing is to return, but always on our own terms. What does true family mean to you? Is it blood connection, or people who respect and value you? Jocelyn discovered it was possible to redefine family on her own terms.